Here are your cybersecurity choices for 2026. You can ignore this podcast and ignore everything. And then when you get hacked, try to unfuck your entire situation. Or you can spend a little bit of time now. Maybe it's a down, things are still kind of chill, January. Yep. Get some systems set in place and then go from there. I would much rather do the first one than the second one. Although currently, I would say I'm set up to do the second one. So I'm going to listen to this with our guest, Brad, and then I'm going to attempt to do something about this. I have a lot of questions, and I think the normal shop owner is going to be like, oh man, I do everything wrong. I do exactly what Justin's doing, and that is not good.
Welcome to the Automotive Advantage. Grow your business and get smarter in just 1 hour.
We want to help people have a great 2026 and not have any major setbacks. So, one of the biggest concerns is your cybersecurity. And this is one of those topics that I'm super thrilled to talk about, but it's one of those, you got to do it kind of things. And then you realize how many scumbags are out there, and we got to help people make sure they're okay. Individuals, shops, and big corporations all fall victim to this. So give us a little bit of time on this one, and we think it'll pay off for you. So I've got this awesome AI-generated intro. Justin, you hate these, so I'm not going to...
I told you to stop telling people it's AI-generated. We've been over this.
Well, but I put in a nice prompt,
and a security concern. We're going to find out. Go on.
All right, let me just do it. We're just going to do it.
Go on.
Yeah. Raw dog style and just get it going here. So, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce a dear friend to the Automotive Advantage. Brad Brown is here. Brad, you've been a longtime friend of both Justin and myself. We hang out with you a lot. You point out a lot of cybersecurity issues. You are an IT and cybersecurity expert. Maybe you can give your background a little bit more than just that. But you make us aware of some problems that are out there and things that we probably can do a little bit of time, like Justin said, just a little bit of time up front and save yourself from literally crashing your entire company or your individual world. So, Brad, welcome to the Automotive Advantage. Thanks for coming in. Talk a little bit about your background and things you've seen in the auto industry, and we'll get going like that.
Yeah, sure. First off, thanks for having me, guys. I watch these all the time. It's cool to be part of this. First time podcast, so this is kind of cool for me. So yeah, as Jamie mentioned, I've been doing this for a little bit. This is my 28th year. I've worked mostly in automotive through most of my career on the supplier side, not on the OEM. So I've been on the supplier side doing automotive stuff and just being a car enthusiast. Been kind of cool to do that, right? I'm entering a new phase of my life going into aerospace and defense as part of my next chapter of my life, which is really cool. But yeah, as you mentioned, master's degree in cybersecurity, just did that in 2023. Pretty cool experience. Tough to go back to school after all this time, but really cool, really different from when I did my undergrad. But gained a lot of really good information, met some really cool people, really built my network during that process. And quite honestly, without that experience, I wouldn't be taking this next step into my career, going into, this DoD world that I've never been in. It's a different world than automotive, but very excited to go down that path and take what I've gained in all this time and really go in this new direction. Because DoD, Department of Defense, there's a whole world out there that is even scarier than what people realize. I mean, it's terrifying what's going on, especially in the DoD space. So excited to be able to do that and excited to be here to talk to you guys.
I thought DoD security was simple. You just use Signal, add journalists to the chat, run it. Right?
Well, I mean, that's a way to do it, sure, right? I mean, you absolutely can do that. Should you do that? Absolutely not. If you look at the history of the F-35 program, the F-35 is what's changed all this stuff going forward in the DoD. So this requirement to get certified, and the government's no longer saying, hey, we believe you. That's not good enough anymore. Now it's going through this rigorous process of saying, yes, we're doing this. Here's how we're doing it. And automotive sees something very similar. Working in the supplier base, we'd constantly get questions from the OEMs. What are you doing? Show us how you're doing it. What standards are you playing by, right? The automotive industry, though, is a bit behind that they haven't settled on a format of how can you prove what you're doing. The federal government has. This is how you have to do it. This is the only way you can do it. And if you want to play in our space, you have to do it this way. Automotive hasn't gotten there yet. The hope was they would. They haven't. Hopefully, some point that will happen in automotive because of all the connected car, the connected vehicles, and things like that. So I think automotive is a bit behind, in my opinion, of that, because they all play by different standards and different rules. So I think the government space is definitely ahead of where some of the other industries are. Maybe medical, not so much. Medical, we can't get into medical, but that's probably the only other industry I would say is much like government, where there's a path, there's a plan. So, but yeah, you're right. You can absolutely do it the Signal way, and it's just not the right way. And look what happens. Look at the results.
I'm thinking about, Brad's getting me warmed up here a little bit. I'm thinking about some of the examples of when things go wrong. I've lost money online with people that have, scammed me. I think everybody's had problems like that. I also know of mid to large size automotive aftermarket companies that have been literally held ransom by, I'll say, quote unquote, Russian hackers. That's how they define themselves. We've seen large organizations lose control of all their data for several weeks, and it's very expensive, it's very disruptive, and this is, trillions of dollars lost across the year for the US. So, Brad, maybe some examples of when it goes wrong for an individual, or some corporate examples of when cybersecurity rears its head, and when people have made small mistakes and make big problems. What comes to mind? Give us some examples.
Sure, the first one that comes to mind is Target. Target was hacked. I think it's probably been 10 years ago now at this point, which doesn't seem like a long time ago, but that was kind of the first big hack that really brought people's attention to, oh, this is not good. It was right before the holidays. Credit card numbers had been exposed. Their POS terminals it was bad. The CIO got fired. The CISO got fired, Chief Information Security Officer. A whole bunch of people got fired over this whole deal. But the Target hack was one of the very first big public when things go wrong. One of the most recent ones, MGM Casinos. Look what happened to that, right? They lost, I want to say it was $30 million was their total number that they're talking about, right? But their systems were compromised because a privileged account got changed because somebody tricked their service desk into doing it. But they couldn't do reservations, they couldn't do gambling, they couldn't do any of that. So, that's a very recent example, and one that was a bit ago, right? But just do a Google search. Do a Google search any given day of cyber attack. You will find the phone book. Marriott has been hacked. Target, MGM, Caesar's Palace was hacked at that same time that MGM got hacked. Theirs just kind of got disappeared under the carpet because they paid the ransom. So there's lots. Every single day, every single week, big companies that all of us here know are being compromised. Some talk about it, some don't. Now, what people don't realize, excuse me, is if you're a publicly traded company, you have to report this. This shows up on your 10K filing that you've been hacked. This is what happened, not so much what happened, but here's what happened, here's what has been done, and here's what you did to fix it. So if you're a publicly traded company, that comes up. Private companies can hide it, they can bury it, they can keep it quiet. But when you're a public company and you're trading stock, people are gonna know. It's going to impact your reputation. It's going to impact your brand. It's going to impact all kinds of things, right? But those are just some quick ones that come to mind. But every single day this is going on, whether you hear about it or not. Do you want to be in the news? I don't want to be in the news. Do you want to be in the news?
I mean, not for that.
I'm thinking about a couple examples, Brad. This is a little bit dated, but when I think it was Jeep, but one of the OEMs was hacked and could take over control of the vehicle. That sent shockwaves through Detroit. It actually impacted me as a performance parts program manager and some of the security around vehicles. Yep. The other one, I think within the last 12 months, the supplier to several dealerships, some of the databases that were used, they got taken out for a couple weeks. You know anything about those cases?
Not that specific. I know the Jeep case you're talking about. The Jeep case was a bit interesting because In that specific example, they had physical access to the truck to do what they were able to do. And that's something that really wasn't talked about at the time. The headline was, the Jeep's been hacked, they can drive it, they can do whatever to it. But the big part of that was they had physical access to be able to do what they did prior to taking over the vehicle. I think since Stellantis has fixed that problem and they've taken that bug away, but that threat is still there. The more stuff you have connected, the more things that talk to the internet, the more chances you have for something like that to happen. Now, I think that incident woke up the industry, was like, whoa, we got to do something about this. I was working for a supplier at the time, and it rippled through that supplier rather quickly because of what we did as part of our business. I won't name the company, but it rippled through quick. And people were like, wow, I didn't realize that could happen. But it can. It absolutely can. But think of any of your devices, right? Not just the vehicle. Your refrigerator now is connected to the internet. Your microwave, your washing machine. Things that you ever think would be connected to the internet? No, right? But all of that stuff is targets, soft targets.
This is why I didn't want to do this podcast. He's going to make me lose sleep over this shit.
Oh, well, yeah, there's some things that are true. I wrote down, all of my information is on the dark web already, I assume, right? Like,
You should just assume that.
yeah, it was either with Target or with MGM or someone, and it is leaked onto the dark web. Now, I guess what makes me sleep at night is everyone's is, so now they have to find mine in this thing. But talk to me about, man, I don't know where to start. Don't think about that. I want to start at the beginning again. Talk to me about passwords.
Yep.
So everything starts with a password.
Indeed.
Let's just assume I'm a shop or a listener that has a side hustle.
Yep.
I have a Gmail account.
Yep.
I have a password.
Yep.
Let's start there. What is the modern day password recommendation? Because it used to be like change it every 10 minutes and then forget it and then call IT or whatever. Where are we right now?
So password-wise now, complex passwords. And when I say complex, not words, nothing you would be able to identify, think phrases. My favorite plant is whatever. My favorite ice cream. Make it as hard as you can, but something that you're going to remember. Special characters, numbers, capitalizations. Every time you add a character, it makes it infinitely harder to guess that password. In business, we've really kind of gone away from changing passwords because of, you write it down, you put it on a sticky, and now it's on your laptop. Now it's in your notebook. Now it's on your desk. So instead of using something you're going to remember, you just keep changing it and just leaving it stuck on something. What's the point? You might as well just throw your keys out in the front yard, leave your doors unlocked, and just let anybody come in. So modern theory on password is complex, many characters, many different characters, but not something that someone's going to, don't use your kids' names. Don't use your car name. Don't use things in your life that people are going to be able to figure out. When we create complex passwords in our world, we use password generators, and it makes it all just rando characters, and they're 35 characters long. Nobody's ever going to guess that. The other part of it is using multi-factor authentication, right? There's apps now you can use like Google Authenticator. Take your pick. There's a bazillion of them. Whatever your favorite one is, wherever you can, use them. Make it as hard as you can for somebody to do something bad with your information. It's kind of having the lock and the key. If you only have one of them, you're only going to be able to go so far. But long answer to your question, make it as difficult as possible, but something that you're going to remember and use. Because if it's too difficult, you're not going to use it, right? You need to go back to, my cat's name with 3 numbers after it. Okay, what's the point? People are going to figure out fluffy 1, 2, 3 awfully quick. It used to be kind of the standing joke in IT of those kind of passwords. And as we went through, as I've been through my career, you walk up to somebody's desk, sure enough, there's a sticky note password, and you're just like, okay, well, why do we even have this stuff? This just doesn't make sense. So a lot of organizations now are going away from changing passwords, really enforcing the complex passwords, really enforcing this multi-levels of security. And some companies are even doing biometrics. You can use fingerprint, you can use face recognition. I mean, look at your iPhone, look at your Android. There's a lot of inherent safety features now that didn't exist 10 years ago. But make it as difficult as you can without inhibiting what you're trying to do, right? I mean, it's a balance. When is it when is the cost versus the benefit, and where do you find that? So I hope that answers your question, but yeah, complex, long, scary, something that you're going to remember, but nobody else is going to guess.
Okay, so now I've got that. It's got hyphens in it. It's got capitalization. It's got numbers. I remember one. Now, do I use that everywhere, or do I need different one for Gmail and for Outlook and for this and for all of the, because I'm logging into a million things a day. So what am I to do now?
Great question. Don't share your passwords around, because once that password gets out, now they're just going to take your information and pound that password against anything that you're going to find in your dark web, right? Your email address and anything you've logged into, they're just going to take that password and pound against it, right? Password managers have made that a whole lot easier to where you can have individual passwords for different sites, different things you go to. Don't use the same password. That's probably one of the biggest flaws people do, is they take that same password and they're like, oh, it's super complex and it's amazing and it's cool. Yeah, it's great until it gets hacked and now everybody has it. And by the time you figure that out, they've already taken over your information. So, I would say use a password manager, whichever flavor you like. I don't have a specific one that I like or I recommend, but use different ones in different places. And, you brought up email address. That's another great thing. Sanitize your email addresses. Don't use the same email address for the things you sign up for all your mailing lists for, right? Keep your business mail and your sign-up mail separate. Keep those two worlds separate, and it'll keep your mail a whole lot cleaner. And then when something bad happens, you just let that one go away and you start over. But I think that's a big one people do, is they use one email address for everything. And then when that thing gets out on the dark web, now they got your email, now they get your password, they got everything, right? So that's also scary. So that's another thing to think about, is keep your business and your personal separate.
Yeah, I'm bad about that one. So I've got my good password. I'm probably just using that super good password on my password manager now. And then in my password manager, it's got all the other ones. I'm safe from my own passwords because I just let it generate it and use it. I don't even know them. So if I get into some CIA situation where they need my passwords, I can't get to them, right? So it's like, that way, if I can't guess it, I think that helps. But then you mentioned two-factor, but some people listening to this might not know what that is yet. So can you just give me a quick two-factor, what is it, and how do I use it?
Sure. So I would say more multi-factor than two-factor. Two-factor used to be the old school way of looking at it, but now it's multi-factor. Multi-factor can be anything. It can be a password with a PIN number. It can be a password with a text message. It could be an application on your phone that gives you a code. Just another way to verify who you are. It could be text, it could be an app, it could be a phone call. Phone was a big thing a while back. A code to your email that only you know. So multi-factor is multiple authentication methods to get into one thing. But it could be retina, it could be fingerprint. There's a lot, face. There's a lot of different things of what people call multi-factor. So lots of different answers to that, and it really depends on what is your application support. What is the thing you're doing support? Because even in 2026, there's things that still don't support multi-factor authentication, which is mind-blowing to me, especially in like banking and think of credit cards and things like that. There's still things in my life that don't support multi-factor authentication. So long answer to your question, but there's a lot of ways to do that, and whatever you're comfortable and you're going to use repeatedly is the best solution for you.
For my banking information, every time I use multi-factor, it asks me, do you want us to remember this computer, or do you want to use multi-factor every time? I'm so tempted to hit just remember it. I don't want to deal with this, but I don't. I hit 2FA every time. Is that a good practice for someone at home? And can they deviate depending on if it's a Hulu login versus your bank?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the risk versus reward, right? Think of the information that could be compromised if you were to check that box and say, sure, remember me, right? If you care about what your Hulu account looks like and what you've watched, maybe you shouldn't do that. But if that's no big deal to you, sure. Everybody has to have a degree of what am I comfortable with and what's really important to me. Banking information, probably more important than your Hulu account, right? But I think it really depends on the application that you want to protect. Certain things, yeah, maybe it's not as big of a deal if someone gets into your Hulu or, like in your case with your YouTube account. That could be a really big deal because you use it for business. Do you want someone to take your content? So I guess you have to look at it as not just what is it, but what are you doing with it? And what's the information in there and how valuable is it to you or to someone else?
A quick PSA here and a plea. I remember when John McAfee came out with those commercials where he's like, you can't steal, or the lifeguard guy where he's like, you can't steal my social security number. And then everyone took that as a challenge and like 1 trillion people stole it. This video is not like, try to please hack into our YouTube channel after this. We're not very secure. We don't make any money on the Automotive Advantage. Please don't try to do that. But I know, people see things 100%. And we see it all the time. I get at least 2 notifications a day for an Instagram channel that we manage that says, sorry you lost your password, to reset it, click here, which means someone else was trying to get in, right?
And one thing I would add to what you're saying, Justin, is anything we're talking about here, take it in context for what we're talking about. It is not a challenge to try to get to any one of us and see, let's see how secure they are. It is not that. So please take this information with a bit of sensitivity that, we're trying to help the industry. We're trying to help people that are watching this and not turn it into, let's see how bad we can do. I work with a couple of different high school organizations where I go in and talk about cybersecurity. And one of the first things I talk about is anything we talk about in this room is meant to be used for good. Please be mindful of that, especially when we're talking to students. And this is not a challenge to go see if what Brad said, can we actually go do, right? And that's something that in the security space is a big deal. So, as we're talking, I won't talk about places I've worked. I won't talk about specific tools. There's just things that I won't talk about out of respect for organizations that I've been at and not exposing them or myself to possible risk. So, you have to talk about it in order to prevent it, but you have to talk about it in a space to where people understand it and they understand what the point you're trying to make. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense to me. I have one last password thing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I want you to feel like you got totally satisfied by Brad.
Oh, wow. Now you have to go. Now I refuse to ask my question.
Go from so no, that's a good review for like the individual security. Yep. So let's talk about small size companies like under 25 or under 50 employees. A lot of I'm thinking about some of the examples that have come up in what I've done. A lot of times you'll have employees that are rather fluid. So you got the person running the social media account for the company, they take off to go do something else, and now ownership just lost control of their social media accounts. Give me the best practices for a small company on how do I keep control of I think it's mostly data, but what's the best way to manage some of these issues?
Yeah, it's a complex question. You talk about the access side of it as part of it, and then you also talk about the data, right? Kind of same but different worlds. And it really comes down to talking about hygiene, like we talked about a bit with your passwords. It's who has access to those things, who has backup access to them, right? Making sure that there never is any single point of failure, especially with your accounts, right? And I think as we all know, once you lose access to some of those things, it's very difficult by design to try to get back in. So, my opinion is it's not a single thread where you have just Justin responsible for all the passwords, right? That you're just setting yourself up. So I think that's part of it, is who can you trust that has that kind of access? And also, let's say Justin leaves, making sure that those passwords are properly reset and access has been removed. And, we look at it in the business world, we call it zero trust, right? You give people only the access that they need and nothing more. But making sure accounts are locked out, closed out, old employees are terminated properly. It sounds easy. It's not. I haven't found one company that I've worked for that has ever gotten this right. And it's tough. It's a really tough thing. But I think having that multi-factor and things like that help with not losing control. But it's when someone does move on, doing that due diligence to make sure you've removed set access, and now only the right people have those. And that's from an access side. Now the data side, trying to protect your data, that can be Pandora's box, right? Because now we're getting into, is your data stored locally? Have you put it up in the cloud? Is it in 9 different places on the cloud? And when we talk about cloud, it's just somebody else's computer, right? I mean, people talk about cloud and this complex. It is and it isn't, but it's just somebody else's computer. You're just taking your stuff and putting it in somebody else's house. So, we could have a whole discussion just on where do I put my data? How do I keep my data safe? But it really comes down to, in the simplistic terms, giving people access only to what they need and no more. And that's a really difficult thing to do, especially when you have people moving around in a company, doing different roles. They take their access with them traditionally. And now you have Justin has moved on to do something else, but Justin still has access to all this other stuff over here he shouldn't have access to. That's a very difficult thing, especially in a smaller company, because in a smaller company, you're probably either trying to do this all yourself, or you have a contractor that you've paid and you're trusting with your data and you're trusting to manage this for you. So, it's a deep, dangerous place, especially in that small business space, because you probably don't have an IT department. You probably don't have an expert, and you probably should. There's so many good resources out there today. And look, it's not cheap. Security is not cheap. IT is not cheap. It's never going to be cheap. And unfortunately, the world has gotten scary that you can't just rely on, hey, I've got a buddy who knows computers to run your business. You think about it from accounting, right? Changing banking information. I know we're kind of going down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but that is something as simple as that. How do you protect your bank from being changed just inside your business? If you have a small company, Justin, I'll look at you as an example. You're the accountant, you're this, you're that, you're all those different hats. How do you prevent bad things from happening when you're the single source of failure for all of that stuff? And I think for the small business owners watching this, that's something that you really need to pay attention to. You got 10,000 things going in your head. You got to slow down and you got to think about some of this stuff. Otherwise, you're going to be on the news or you're not going to have a business.
Yeah, for sure. So on the password thing, especially for social media, I'm gonna call out an overreach that I see from social media companies all the time, where social media companies will come in, it's like, hey, I can't handle my social media anymore. I'm going to get with an agency, blah, blah, blah. The first thing that agency asks for every time is like super triple admin access to every single social media account that exists. I'm currently dealing with this where another agency is like, I don't have enough access to the thing. It's like, bro, you have all the access you need to do the thing. It's like, no, we need super admin. Like, no, you don't. The only thing that super admin gets you that you don't have now is the ability to deactivate this entire page, which you obviously don't need to have that, right? So I want to talk about that a little bit, just this overreach and then the control factor. But I also want to talk about, we run into this a lot where we are onboarding with a client or a client is onboarding with someone else. And this idea of, well, okay, I do need some passwords. Like I do need to log into MailChimp and I need to log into social and I need to be here. And what happens mainly is like they just email you back with all the passwords in plain text, which is horrific. Or they make like an Excel document as if that's even easier for the AI to just scoop up, right? So how do I even, I just onboarded a new contractor. They're going to run my social media for me. Yeah. How do I even give them the passwords in the first place? And then we can talk about the access.
Yeah, so moving passwords around is always tricky, right? One of the practices that I use is if I have to send somebody a password, it's usually through a different method than what I've sent them a user ID in. So maybe I'll send the user ID in a spreadsheet and here's all your user IDs. And then the password comes in a text message or some other media. Maybe I see you in person and I hand you that list. Not that it's great to have that stuff written down, but keeping those two things separate. So if someone intercepts the email, okay, cool, they have the names, but they don't have the passwords. So I would say using different methods to do that. And, we see in business that quite frequently. You'll reset your password, you'll use a text message to get it, but you had to provide your email account over here in an email or in a web portal, but it's coming back to you in another method. The other thing that we do is maybe somebody needs a password reset. We need to verify that who is doing it is actually the right person. Verify it with someone else. Verify it with another employee. Verify it with a manager. So it's keeping that stuff separate, but doing it in a way that it's not too intrusive, but using different media methods to transmit that. There's no perfect way. I mean, there just isn't a perfect way. And again, you have to find that balance of what's efficient versus getting the work done, right? You can't be so cumbersome in your process to where it's like, okay, well, we're just not going to do this, and we just don't have access. That doesn't work. So I think it's using multiple media streams when you do that. Now, again, what works for you, what works for your situation. Maybe it's you have a password file and a password manager, and you're setting up somebody else with that password file to do that. So many different ways depending on which thing you're trying to change. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I mean, Facebook, well, Meta is garbage, but Meta makes adding users to Facebook and to Instagram at the same time one of the most difficult things anybody's ever tried to accomplish. And normally what happens is maybe you have a business account set up, maybe you can add them as a user on the Facebook side, but then you logged into your Instagram with a password, so now you have to share the password with them. But that now they want super admin access, so you give it to them. You've done everything that we've already said to do. You're safe with all of that. But their password is password1234! Now all I need to do is hack them, and I'm into the whole thing, right? So that's why that access part is so critical here.
Right, and that's where it goes back to that zero trust mentality of only giving access to what they absolutely need. And to your point, not giving super admin access. Why? You can do your job with what you need. And we see this in the IT world where you'll have administrators who want that super access. It's like, you don't need that super access. There's nothing that you need to do in your life that you need that for. So it's, again, going back to only allowing what you absolutely need to do your job. Now, if you absolutely have to have it, maybe it's you made a super admin, you do what you need to do, and then it gets removed. And, we do that in business where we work in two different accounts. We have our daily account that I can do my mail and I can do Facebook and whatever, but then I have my admin account that doesn't have internet access. It doesn't have access to my regular data. I can't log into my email with it. So it's kind of separating those two worlds to where I can go do what I need to do over here, but I can go over here and still do what I need to do my job. And then, that admin account only has access for a limited period of time, right? So the companies like Microsoft and that have gotten really good with being able to give access for what you need only as long as you need it, and then it gets taken away, and then you have to ask for it again. So, that's complex way to do it, but I think in the smaller business scale, you can still scale that down to have a similar concept of you only have what you need, you only have what you need. One of the arguments I used to hear a lot early in my career was, the CEO had all kinds of access. Why? Well, because he's the CEO, he has to have it. No, he doesn't. He has nothing. He does not have to have it. There's no reason he has to have it. Well, but he's the CEO. It doesn't matter. He's the biggest target here. Why would you want your biggest target to have the most access in the company, right? So it's interesting how that mentality has shifted to where everybody has it to now you only get it if you need it, which is really, really smart. And even in your personal life, think of that, right? If you have kids, if you have other family, do everybody have to have the same access? No, they don't. Keep it simple, keep it limited for good reason, good hygiene.
I'm thinking about larger companies now, Justin, and I think for employees, they kind of, they get annual training, they kind of follow the rules. But yet we've seen really big companies like we opened up with get in a lot of trouble with hackers. There are people that watch this podcast every week that run multi-billion-dollar companies. We have a lot of OEM folks that check in with us. I guess maybe get them on the cutting edge of what their concerns should be and give them a playbook on, hey, every year you should be doing this for cybersecurity. Take it away.
Yeah, so cybersecurity training is a really big deal. It used to be you could do it once or twice a year and that was enough. It's not. It needs to be part of your culture, part of your daily life, to where if you're running a big company and you have an IT organization, your IT organization should be testing your employees regularly, putting out fake emails, put them through the ringer, because that's the only way you're going to make your company as safe as you can, is by constantly challenging your employees, training them, educating them, talking about incidents when they happen. You know, when I was early in my career, the big thing with incidents, you didn't talk about it. It got swept under the rug. It was, you can't talk about this. But now it's so public, it's part of 10K filing reports. You have to talk about it. Talk about the example. Use it as an opportunity to say, hey, we didn't do something very good over here. Let's not do that again, right? So it's having a rigorous training program and not just checking a box saying, yep, did our annual cybersecurity training, but really living that, really breathing that. And it's got to come from the top. You know, you've got to look at it from, you know, big companies. This has to be board level kind of stuff coming down through the organization. If you're in an IT organization where, like I've been in my career, and you try to push this stuff up through the funnel, you're never going to move the needle. You might save one, you might keep one person from doing something stupid, but it's got to start at the top, and it's got to be a culture that comes down through the organization that we need to be the most safe as we can. And not just the, why are we doing this, but what does it mean if we don't? Do you want to be in the news? Do you want to lose the company? I don't think anybody wants that. Do you want to lose your bonus because we had a cyber incident? Probably not. So it's got to start at the top, and it's got to come down through the organization. But, you know, security and IT has always been a utility in the past. It's never been top of mind until the last probably 10 years. But now it should be the top of mind of every CEO in every big company. Period. Full stop.
Brad, talk to the executives, talk to the business owners that are looking at their IT department or looking to hire an IT agency or bring in an IT expert. Yeah. What are some things you would look for if you're hiring to start an IT program at your company? I
mean, I think you have to look at the size of your company, right? What are you willing, I'm going to use the word sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice out of your bottom line? What kind of budget do you have to work with, right? You have to start somewhere. It's not cheap. Hiring people is not cheap. Hiring agencies is really not cheap. But what can you absorb into your business? What can you take off your top of line to invest into because it's an investment into your business. You're preventing the loss of your business down the road, the potential loss, the embarrassment, whatever might come from that. So, you know, when you're looking at agencies, when you're looking at people, what kind of credentials do they have? What's their reputation there's so much good information out there now because cybersecurity has become such a topic. Lots of great resources out there. If you're a big company, look at places like Gartner. Gartner has a lot of great information on who, that upper quadrant of the top security providers are. Smaller businesses, it's a lot harder because you're probably going to have to look at a smaller company that maybe doesn't have that reputation established yet because they don't play in that space. But there's so much information out there now to help companies. CISA is a government agency, CISA.gov. Lots of great resources that's free that a business owner could go out and look at just to get an idea of what resources might be available to me. But it's really how much money do you have to spend to start? I mean, you can't start and try to build it overnight. It's just not going to work. But it needs to be the top of your mind in whatever you're able to absorb into your business. Now, I can't tell you that without knowing specifics about business, but it's going to come off your bottom line, no doubt about it. But think of it as an investment into your company, as if you were buying a building, as if you were engineering a new product, right? You have to think of it from that perspective, that this is an innovation in my business, not just I need electricity, I need IT, it can't be that anymore. The world's just too scary. It's just too scary.
Yeah, it's more a question of, it's not really how much can I invest in this, it's more how much will I lose when all of my data and passwords get stolen and I lose all of my accounts, or I lose 6 hours of Delta flights taking off, right? It can get into hundreds of millions of dollars an hour at scale. Right. And even for small companies, it can be very impactful to the business. So I think look at it both ways. Like, one, how much can I spend? Because there is a number to that, but also how big is my risk here, right?
Yeah, and absolutely. And if you look at the risk perspective, the more interesting you are as a company, the bigger of a target you are. If you look in the automotive space with all the cool whiz-bang things that are out there, every time you make a product release, every time you put out a press release, you've now opened yourself up to be numero uno target number one, right? Because you're putting out social, you're putting out videos, you're putting out press releases, and it's, look at this cool new whatever we're doing, right? You've now brought a light to yourself that maybe nobody knew about. And, if you look at the bad guys today, right, you're dealing with state-sponsored, and when I say state-sponsored, I'm talking about country-sponsored, China, Iran, India, take your pick, where people go to work and do jobs to come after you and your business and your livelihood, right? They don't care who you are. They don't care about your family. They don't care about the business you built. They know you have a product, they know it made money, and they know how much money you have, at least on paper, right? So, I'll use this term, and I say it a lot in business, the sexier of a target you are, the bigger the bullseye on your back, because they know you got money and they're gonna come and try to take it. And if they're not gonna come try to take your money, they're gonna try to take your product, or they're gonna try to take your IP and go do other things with it and then make you pay to get your product back. So the comment you made, Justin, about, how much are you willing to lose? Are you willing to lose your whole business and your livelihood and your family's livelihood because you can't or won't invest in protecting what you've built, right? And it sounds scary to say that, but when you put it in those kind of terms, you have to put it in an impactful way that someone's going to understand this isn't a 12-year-old mom's basement anymore. These are professionals. You have computers fighting humans. You've all seen Terminator, right? How well does that work out for the humans? Not very good. So that's what we're dealing with. I know it's a little bit of segue into AI here, but you now have machines doing this. You don't have people sitting at keyboards. You have machines doing it. They just point at your company and say, yep, let's see what we can get out of Justin's company, right? So it's things like that. And it's a scary world for a business owner to have to deal with that, on top of, do I have the right product? Am I going to be profitable? And worrying about this bad guy in the corner trying to take everything away that you've spent your life building.
Yeah, let's get into some real world examples here, I think, because that might help illustrate some of this. So we, Driveline, had our website hacked probably 9 months ago, something like that. And in the process of attempting to restore it, we figured out that they had gotten into the PHP database and then written a little script, and then that allowed them to do a bunch of stuff and whatever. So in fixing it, we installed this thing that could monitor how many IP addresses and how many people were trying to log into the back end of the website. And what someone at home might think is like, oh, it was one guy in his basement logging in from South Dakota. No, it was 500 to 1,000 attempts an hour from Pakistan, another 500 or 1,000 attempts an hour from China. We were just blacklisting entire countries. No one in Pakistan is doing business with Driveline Studios. So if they can't access our website, our .com, that's fine with me. But I mean, the volume here is absolutely incredible. And they're just brute forcing this thing. We can see it with this tool. You can see every time they attempt to log in and what they're trying to use as a password and what they're trying to use. And they're pretty dumb about it. It looked like they weren't on the top of the charts here, but someone did get in. And at the peak of this thing, it was something like 20,000, 30,000 attempts an hour to get into our website. And our website has nothing on it. Like there's no good reason to get on our website. What they were doing, though, we found out, was hosting like illegal online gambling app in the back side of our. Yeah, it was crazy.
Did you make any money off of that?
I haven't gotten any royalties from it.
Check hasn't come.
Yeah, no, any day now. But like something like that, right? How that's got to be happening to everybody, and maybe they don't get in, but that's the level we're talking about. It's not one-to-one, right?
Oh no, it is definitely not one-to-one. And I go back to my comment about machines fighting humans. Once if you have any kind of public-facing domain, and I am by no means a web expert, so I'm not going to claim to be here. But to your point, yes, it's machines going after targets that they've just put in your domain name and just hit enter and walk away, right? I mean, and I'm oversimplifying it, but they get a list of domain names that are active, and they just pound against them until they find a vulnerability. It used to be firewall security was a really big deal, and it still is, but that stuff has gotten so good. It's not that. It's the social engineering side. It's the how can I get Justin to give me his password and feel good about it so I can now go do what I need to do and do bad things. Yes, stuff gets banged against every single day, hour after hour, and the bigger you are, the bigger your target, the more they want to come after you. You think about somebody who has lots of IP, like the automotive industry, like the defense industry, things like that, right? You are a target because they want your IP. They want the stuff that you have created. In your case, they wanted your website to do bad things with where your website was hosted. You look at like crypto mining and you look at all this stuff, that's what they do is they take over open targets to do things that you have no idea is going on in the background until you try to do something with your own stuff. And it's like, wait, why doesn't this work? Why am I blacklisted? Because someone has hijacked your stuff and is doing bad things with it. And that's where it gets difficult, especially when you get into hosting, and because I'm sure you don't host your own website, you have a company that does it for you. So you're trusting that that company has the protections in place to keep your stuff from getting taken over. But you're 100% right. Machines fighting machines, machines fighting humans, and the smarter AI gets and the smarter the tools are getting, the harder and harder and harder it is to fight this stuff off every single day.
Let's wade into the waters here and introduce phishing as a concept. We've talked about passwords, but the reality is, other than brute forcing a trillion times, your password is not going to get guessed. Your password is going to get socially engineered out of you 100%. One way or another. And the training is to train people on how to do that. And I have a bunch of examples of this happening, but explain phishing as a concept, what it was, and where we are today.
Yep. So phishing is where someone sends you an email, I'll use it very specific to email, sends you an email trying to get you to do something that you wouldn't normally do. It could be a password. It could be changing bank information. It could be all kinds of different things. Somebody has sent you a message trying to get you to click on something or do something that you wouldn't necessarily do. Holidays are a real big time for this. You're busy, you're half paying attention, you get this email and you're like, oh yeah, I'll click on that. Next thing you know, you've just given away your password or whatever. It's everywhere. They take it a step farther when they do something called spear phishing. They go after very specific targets. They know you own Driveline Studios. They want to go after you because they want your information. It's not just everybody at Driveline. They want you. So it becomes a very targeted type of attack. And working in the big companies that I've seen that where they pick very specific targets, your CEO, your CFO, anywhere they can find that information that's readily available, right? And once they have an email address, they can guess the rest of them. I mean, if they know yours, they can guess his just by the format of it. So it's really easy. So you become a spear phishing target, right? So it's really, when you're getting email, the best thing I tell people, take your time, don't respond anything quickly, read what's being asked of you, look where it came from.
So hard, Brad. So hard.
It is hard. It 100% is hard, but you have to slow down. And the bad guys are preying on the fact that you're doing 13 other things while you're playing with your email, and you're going to just do what they've asked because oh, yeah, okay, sure. Yes, I signed into that. Okay, sounds good to me, whatever. Not realizing what you just did. But you see phishing in business, you see phishing in personal. I mean, anybody with an email account has been phished. Whether you fell for it or not, different story, but everybody has been phished. Some way, shape, or form, you have received something asking you to do something that you wouldn't ordinarily do. Now, the flip side of that, maybe it is something you would be doing, and it looks like it's from someone oh yeah, that's my banking guy. Wait a minute, is it? Nope, it really isn't. You just changed your bank account information and gave it to the bad guys, right? So it's really being slow, taking your time. Nothing is an emergency. Let it sit, come back to it, let it bake for a while. And when I was doing a lot of cybersecurity training, that was one thing we would really push is just walk away from it. It's going to be there when you come back. Then take a look at it and go, oh, wait a minute, this isn't right. But spear phishing and phishing are probably two of the biggest threats to people, business, because they're preying on you to make a mistake.
Yeah, I have two good examples here that were both terrifying. And one of them goes to the email spoofing thing. So we had a new employee start, and I told them on day one, hey, I will never ask you for your bank account information to send me money for any reason through email. I know that sounds ridiculous. It's not going to happen. They start, we get them an email address. Literally a day later, 24 hours later, they get an email, Justin@drivelinestudios.com, except instead of IL, it's 2 L's. It's your first day at the company. It's going to look like it's from me. They had spoofed my signature and they said, hey, I know that you would send your bank account information, but I lost it or whatever. Can you just resend it to me real quick? Now, this person has worked here for 24 hours. Of course, they're going to send the person asking them for their bank account information, right? Luckily, we had just talked about it. They forwarded it to me or called me, I think, and it was like, no, I did not send that. But just that, the immediacy of it. And what we tracked it back down to was they had said on LinkedIn that they got a new job. So immediately someone is looking at that saying, oh, new hire at this company. I already figured out how the email addresses work at this company. I can spoof one real fast, send them a note. It's day 2, day 3. Or if you're at a big company, you don't interact with the CEO a lot. So if the CEO emails you asking for your banking information, you're gonna be like, shit, I better do it right now. So talk to us about that. I saw one with Microsoft where instead of an M, it was an R and an N, but in a thing, it looked like Microsoft. So maybe give me something on that topic.
So it's very common. It's a very easy one to spoof because anybody can buy a domain name and you can make it whatever you want it. And that's a very common trick of switching letters, an I versus an L, adding 2 I's, 2 L's, because at quick glance, you're not going to notice it. I can give you a real example of a company that I worked at where something like this happened. And the attacker was smart. They got into one of our customers' email accounts, switched it, started responding from their own, but kept all of the history of the conversation that was going on. It ended up being like $150,000 oopsie, but it had gone on, like we went back and looked, it had gone on for weeks where people, 6, 8, 10 people were copied on this message and not a single person caught it until bankers got involved and said, hey, we haven't gotten our money this month. Like what's going on here? And then they started going back through it and found that the company we were dealing with, their email had been compromised. The attacker switched it, now started responding from theirs, but kept all of the history, used the same tone. It was one of the more crafty ones that I've seen. But yeah, to your point, this is an easy one. And that's where I say slow down and think of, okay, would Justin really ask me for this? Would the CEO of Ford ask me this? Right? Does the CEO of Ford even know your name? Probably not. So, put it in that context with what you're being asked to do. Is it something you'd be asked to do in a normal, take yourself out of work and think, is this normal? Is this something somebody would ask me? No, it's not. Don't do it. Don't fall. But it is shocking how much of this stuff happens every single day.
I was a part of one that was similar to what you said, except they did not compromise the email, but they created a fake chain of replies. Yep. And then the first email they sent, they had spoofed my email using a different thing with 2 E's or whatever, and they had made a bunch of replies to the client, and then they had sent to the client, oh, hey, we changed our banking information, blah, 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 just send the next invoice to, and they gave them the updated banking information. I was on a call unrelated to any of this, because obviously I'm not on this email chain. And someone said, at the very end of the call, someone said, oh, hey, by the way, Justin, we got your banking information changed. We'll get it in the next invoice. And I was like, full stop, what? But it was that close. I mean, they had accomplished it. other than someone just mentioning it on a call. Like it was a big invoice. You know, it would have been disastrous for us, but there you need everybody to be on the lookout for these things, because that does happen. People do change their banking information. People do send emails like that. So that's a tough one.
One thing I'd like to add on that is specific with bank is having a process in your business to how do you change banking information? How do you verify if you got that email saying we need to change it, how do you verify that it's okay? Phone call, calling someone you know, and this goes to anybody who is watching this, whether you're in a big business, a small business, your home, think of that situation as if you're being asked, how can you verify what you've just been asked to do is okay? Call your bank, call somebody in your accounting department. Did somebody request this? Well, we have a process. It has to go like this. We use a form. It's got, have a process, whatever your process is, put in a process of how do you change that bank information so you don't fall for something like that. But it's wild when you watch this go on every day, how quick and willing people are to be like, yeah, cool, sure. No problem. I'll change that. Yeah, they don't even think about it. So yes, it's a great example, and I'm glad you brought it up, is having a process, whatever your process is, and following it every single time so that stuff doesn't happen to you.
We talk about artificial intelligence quite often. Of course, we've touched on it a little bit. That's in this space, and the machines are working against us. Talk about deepfakes. Is that real, or is that just something I see on Instagram? And I think the fake voice deal is real. How effective are those at scamming people now, Brad?
Very. I mean, there was an example in 2024 where a company in Hong Kong, a financial analyst was asked to join a Zoom call. Analyst joined the call. Everybody on that call but the analyst was fake. And they tricked this person into making a banking change to where the company lost $25 million because this person was tricked into doing something on a call this person felt was real. You can look it up. It's a very recent example. I think it was June 2024. But this person was invited to a Zoom call, got on the call, and it was you, and it was you, and it was me, and it was everybody that I know and would trust. Voices, video. I mean, in that person's mind, there was no reason to believe that it wasn't real. So the answer is yes, it is absolutely real. I think it's more real than we want to admit sometimes. And if you look at how good some of the AI has gotten, it's to the point you really can't even tell that it's not real. I mean, look at some of the internet memes and things that are going on right now. That's just for fun. Think about people who really want to do bad. And, if you look at public figures, heads of companies, people who are in the news, you do a lot of video. I mean, even for the both of you guys, you've done interviews, you've done videos, your face, your voice, your likeness is out there. Not hard to duplicate in today's world, right? So think about a motivated attacker taking that and doing whatever they want with it. So, I always be skeptical. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And there's nothing wrong with saying, this doesn't feel right to me. And putting up your hand, even in a big company, and saying, you know what? This doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. I don't think this is right. You might get criticized, but I'd rather be wrong than put my company at risk.
Lose $25 million.
Lose $25 million of your money or your company's money by being skeptical. So I think we have to be skeptical. And as AI gets better, as the fakes get better, it's getting harder. It's getting a whole lot harder to tell what's real and what's not. And the more you're out there, the more, I know this podcast goes to a lot of people who are in the performance business and you're in videos, you're making content, you're making all kinds of stuff. Every time you're doing that, you're putting your face out there. You're giving the bad guys ammunition to become you. And, look at a lot of the celebrities that get put out I will never ask to date you. I will never ask to do this. I will never, because the fakes have gotten so good and so convincing that you don't know. You don't know. But if it doesn't feel good, be skeptical.
I cloned my voice as a test probably 2 years ago. And even then, the technology was unbelievable. And then I have updated it since, and it is basically perfect. And that's me listening to me. I played it for someone the other day and they were like, bro, that's terrifying. And like the voice cloning thing is scary because unlike an email or whatever, like cell service changes. So like if someone sounds a little different, maybe they're in their car or maybe they're, whatever. So the voice cloning thing is real right now for sure. I'm surprised we don't see more of it. We've joked about this before, but like, man, our parents, like if you're not of, like the 15-year-olds are double as smart as we are with this. Imagine being 70, 80 right now. Like that's a tough go, right? So is there anything you can even do for voice cloning other than I've heard people say like, you need a magic word that you can be like, hey, I don't think it's you, say the phrase, right? I mean, something like that.
That's one way to do it, but you're right. I mean, if you look at the elderly population, big targets for this kind of stuff, right? Grandkids stuck in another country, needs money, whatever, right? It's gotten so good. And, when you look at any of these attackers, they want you to do something quick, fast, immediate now. I need this, I need gift cards, gift card scam. Don't fall for it. No one's gonna ever ask you to buy gift cards, but it's always quick, it's always fast. I need it now, I'm gonna hurt you, I'm gonna hurt your family. And that rattles people. And the more rattled that you get, the more likely you are to do whatever you're being asked to do. And then you're threatened to where you can't tell anybody about this, or we're going to continue to hurt your family or whatever. It just turns into the snowball. And I wish I could say there is no good way, but what works best for your family is what's most important. Like you said, code words, great. Call back, hang up the phone, call another family member. Hey, is Bobby in Cozumel and need money? No, he's at school today, right? So things like that. But even in business, it's the same thing. If you're skeptical, call someone and ask. No one is ever going to yell at you for being skeptical, right? May not feel good, but be weary. I have an example of a friend who had a family member who was taken advantage of for a large sum of money because they were tricked into being threatened that something was going to happen to them if they didn't do it. And this went on for months.
Lots of money.
Lots of money with commas. And I'll just leave it at that. And it was bad. Now, these are the ones we hear about, right? Think of the ones we don't hear about. Think of the ones that never make the news or you don't have a personal experience. But I think you can ask anybody in your life who's had an example of this, and you will find someone within 1 degree of separation where it's happened. Oh, it happened to my aunt, it happened to my grandma, it happened to my cousin. You will find somewhere in your life where someone has been taken advantage of in a situation like this.
You can do what I do, just not pick up the phone ever. Then you're safe from the voice cloning.
And never reply to a text message. That's another key security measure.
This is honestly, I've created a moat of security by not interacting with people. So if you want to come steal from me, you got to come here. We got to do it face-to-face, robbery style. Yeah, the old-fashioned way. Yeah. But this is a good segue into like the Facebook or the forum kind of scams for a second. Like I remember timestamps used to be a thing. Like, okay, you're selling me a watch, write your name on a piece of paper, take a photo of that. With AI, like you can that's instantaneous now. There's no way to know about that. Or even like, oh, take a video of it to prove that you have it. Like, okay, well, Sora can do that instantaneously too. So I don't want to go into that world, but just a general note that buying and selling stuff on the internet is going to get trickier and trickier here.
Anything that comes to online, internet, social media, be skeptical. I mean, you just be skeptical. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. If it's too cheap, it probably is. There's a reason, right? And, I hate to say that we have to live in this world, but we do. We have to be skeptical because we truly don't know what's real. And the line between fake and real is blurred so much there isn't a line. And it's anything, whether you're buying a car, whether you're going to a website, when you're buying something, I mean, it is a scary place. I had a question when I was doing one of my high school sessions where one of the students asked me about kids and phones. And I said, don't, ever. Just don't. Keep phones away from kids. Keep social media away the longest as possible. Someone has asked me, with my son, when will he get a phone? When he's 30? I don't care. Because it's just getting so much harder to keep the world safe. And when you don't have the life experiences to go with them, you're going to be more apt to fall in those traps. Whether it's meeting people online, whether it's being tricked into thinking you need to give somebody money, whatever the case is. But, limit your exposure on social media, limit what you share. Simple examples: when you go on vacation, watch when you're posting photos. Wait till you get home if you need to share. Don't do it while you're in real time, because you're just setting yourself up. And we've made our lives so open now from social media that we're willing to share anything at any time about any subject. One thing that I'm real careful about is limiting our son's exposure to pictures online, sharing photos of him, because of what can be done with that kind of information. So you just got to be skeptical. I guess that's the biggest theme of this conversation is be skeptical. Be skeptical of what you do in your business life, your personal life, and just be aware. Have that situational awareness.
How about, and this might not be your area of expertise, but like physical security? Like I know that there's tool like a Flipper Zero, right? It's easy to do RFID cloning now, stuff like that. So what should a regular business, I'm a speed shop, like just physically, should I have webcams that are hardwired? Should I have Bluetooth? Like what's your general vibe on just physical security?
Well, there's so many good tools out there right now to gain information of insecure and unsecure networks. We could have a whole discussion just on hardening security. I have experience with it. There are really good tools you can buy out there that you can get into stuff that's unsecure rather quickly. So if you have a shop, you have that, harden as much as you can, bring in an expert. Don't try to do it yourself. That's the best thing I can tell you. You're not an expert. You might be an expert in your field, but bring in somebody that really understands. If you have a business that you really value what's going on with your data, what's going on with your physical security of your building, there are experts that can help you from a very simple perspective. But there's a lot of tools out there that you can buy. Like you mentioned Flipper Zero. I won't mention some of the other tools because I'm not going to feed whoever's watching this podcast with information on how to go find them. But there's a lot of relatively inexpensive tools that you can do a lot of damage with rather quickly, rather cheaply. There's some really good videos out there from former, I'll call them NSA operators, where they talk about some of this stuff and how to prevent things like this from happening. So there's a lot of really good free resources out there. But if physical security is something that's a very concern of your business, bring in an expert that can help you secure your facility, limiting your Wi-Fi reach, things like that. Because, if you look at the amateur hacker, I will call them, is they will try to find an easy way in. And if you give them an easy way in, like your cameras, they're going to come in, and once they get in there, they're now going to get into other things. I'll talk about that Target hack just here for a minute that I talked about from 10 years ago. They got in through a payment portal for their accounts payable system. So account was compromised there. They were in their system, I think they said, for up to a year, planning the attack, moving inside of the environment, because of an unrelated system got them the backdoor access they need. Then they started working their way in, finding vulnerabilities. So, if someone gets physical access to your environment, you're in big trouble. Really big trouble, because it's really easy. Like, your laptop sitting here, or with the right tool, I can come in, sit down, plug in. The rest is, as we say, history. It should be, and it should scare anybody who's listening to this that, physical access is one of the more terrifying things when it comes to security, because if I can get in and I can touch and I can plug in, my life just got a whole lot easier. And then if I can trick you into doing something that you don't want to do while I'm in here, it's game over.
Well, good. I'm terrified. Are you thoroughly terrified here?
I'm thinking about car theft now that we're talking about physical access, and I'm thinking about some, there are OEMs that have vehicles that are apparently easier for car thieves, but I'm also thinking about the speed shops that modify them and then, they get stolen afterwards. But you got thoughts there about speed shops and locking cars down and making them harder to steal?
I think the short answer is yes. I would be, if I was a speed shop today and I was taking possession of vehicles to work on them, I would be very concerned of what I was doing to that car that could make it easier for someone to do bad things with it later, or while it's in my possession, it being stolen, taken. I mean, I think we've all been to speed shops where there's a gazillion cars sitting outside in the parking lot in the various stages because they're working on them, right? Again, it's part of the business, but you're exposing your business, your customer, by that vehicle sitting outside, and maybe you locked it, maybe you didn't, maybe you left the keys in it, maybe you didn't. And it's not just the speed shops. Look at the OEMs, look at dealerships where the keys, I mean, look here in Detroit, right? I mean, they steal Raptors and Hellcats like they're going out of style because they leave the keys in all the vehicles, right? So I think inherently that's a problem. But if you're modifying vehicles and you're doing things that are going to make it easier for people, I don't know how I feel about that, but that's not my expertise, so I don't want to dive too deep into that world, but it's still scary if you're doing things that could make the car more vulnerable. I think you need to think about that. That's my personal opinion.
I think we did our job for awareness, but if people have questions, Brad, what do you think the best way is? Do you want people to send you notes if they've got?
I'm happy if you have questions to filter them through you guys or through the comments on this, and I'll be happy to. I can either try to advise or point you in the direction of where you can get help. Obviously, the bigger the company you are, the more resources you have. Just a physical money thing, but there's a lot of really great resources where you might live. There's a lot of really good companies that are out there. If you're in trouble, there's a lot of good companies that manage incident response. I won't endorse any specific company here on this podcast, but I'm happy to help point people in the right direction if they have questions. Look, this can be an embarrassing topic. You never want to be that person that says, hey, it was me. So, if you do have questions, feel free to put them through you guys, through the comments, and I'll do the best I can to help you out, at least point you in the right direction. I may have resources in my network that I can connect people with, especially on the big corporate side, not so much on the small business side, because that hasn't been my space, but I'm happy to help anybody try to get where they need to be. Or if you have questions that you don't want to talk about in a public forum, I'm happy to take those and either answer them privately or, again, filter them through you. Because it's scary and it's not easy for people to talk about when you're the one.
It would have been hilarious if Brad fell for your phishing there and gave out all of his personal information to our users after all of that. So good work, Brad. He's stuck to the thing. You don't know his email address. You don't know his social media. Very skeptical, very wise. But yeah, I think that was a great pod. It's kind of scary to listen to if you're in your car right now. But if you made it through this, a lot of the stuff seems terrifying, but it's really just a couple hours to shore up some of the big holes and then just little increments along the way. And all of a sudden you're 2 layers deeper, 3 layers deeper into safety. And then you feel a bit better. And then maybe you can start to do more, right?
Yeah. And I'd say any little step you can take is more than doing nothing. And whether it's just changing your password, you think about, hey, I just signed up for this account. Maybe I should have made it hard, whatever it might be. If you take anything away from this conversation is just be mindful of what you're doing. Just be good citizens and good humans. It sounds like a big ask, but it just little things can make all the difference. Even if it's just you remember this conversation because you're talking to somebody and you're like, oh, I heard this makes some sense to me and I get it now. Or you're sitting in a boardroom and a topic like this comes up. Maybe you just remember this conversation and you don't take anything away from it other than we need more awareness, or we're not the only ones. And I can tell you, you're not the only ones. Everybody is dealing with this all day long. And if there is any other topics that we get through comments, happy to come back and talk about very specific topics. But this is something, it's a hobby I still get paid for. I love doing this stuff. I'm just grateful you guys had me on today. And if we can just reach one person today, we've made the internet a little bit cleaner of a place. Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
We did it. We saved the internet. We did. And that's the pod.